All right, another video here on my way home from the radio station. After the show, of course, the show ended at 11. You're like, wait a minute, it's 2 o'clock. What the heck? But my daughter's getting ready to get married. And since my daughter's getting married, I stayed later at the studio today because I'm working on something special for the wedding. But it's just much easier to do from a place where I can't be bothered, I guess you could say. So let me fix this here real quick. There we go. So hello everybody, Sean, Douchebag Media, good to see you again. I wanted to talk a little bit about, because I've been listening to the radio and watching the propaganda stations, all of them. And even Fox News is making this absurd claim that when Trump visited the troops in Iraq, if you've seen the video, there were some troops there that had MAGA hats with them, and they went up to the president to have the MAGA hat signed, the Make America Great hat again signed. So let me give you a little backdrop first of all, at least as it relates to the military. All right, and this doesn't matter what you think about the military or not. The fact of the matter is that the troops generally suffered under President Obama. As a matter of fact, I might still be in the military had it not been for Barack Obama. I was forced out because of my politics and, of course, because of what happened here in Temple, fighting the city. And, of course, Obama hating gun rights more than Trump does, that was a problem. And all I did for the last couple of years of my service was fight the army, fight the army, fight the army, fight the political leadership, who were obviously very hostile to people who were openly conservative like I was, with a popular military blog and being critical and all that kind of stuff. And so the troops love President Trump, all right? He's been good to the military. And again, whether or not you agree with the budgets and the spending and all that kind of stuff, to a military person, and only to a military person, we finally felt like the president understood us, or at least recognized our sacrifices. We didn't feel that for 8 years under Obama. So the fact that troops had MAGA hats and wanted to have them signed is not surprising and shouldn't be surprising. What is surprising to me, and what really annoys the crap out of me, because among the people saying this, that the troops violated policies, rules, regulations, whatever, is a retired Admiral Kirby. John Kirby, I think is his first name, John, I believe. But it's he's an admiral, a retired Navy admiral. Of course, he was an admiral under Obama. But he's a dumbass. This admiral is a complete moron. And what scares me is that there were sailors under his command, or shall I say, under the command of an idiot. Because Kirby went on to MSNBC propaganda channel and said that these troops had violated policy against political campaign stuff, you know, political campaigning. Let me tell you something, guys. All right, look up, this is the Department of Defense Directive 1344.10. I know this by heart because I had to use it many times when the Army tried to shut me up and tell me I couldn't do the kinds of things I was doing while I was on active duty, and while I was a blogger, and because it was a military blog. And so they tried to equate the fact that I was given an official Army position. And then the Army started censoring what I wrote on my blog. And then the Army started requiring that I get all my blog posts approved before I post them. And then I got to the point where I'm like, no, I'm not going to be controlled by the Army, so I'm just going to stop blogging. And then what I did was I just had other people write for me, like my wife. And then they tried to shut my wife up, and my wife told them to pound sand. This DOD directive, if you do a Google search for DODD 1344.10, this tells you, and I think it's like 7 or 8 pages. This tells you what troops can and cannot do as it relates to campaigning and politics and political activities, okay? And this is a DOD directive. So it applies to Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, anyone that falls under the Department of Defense. This says nowhere in there that having a political sign, a political hat, a political shirt, a political backpack, a political whatever signed by the President of the United States in any way violates a rule, a policy, a guideline, a regulation, or a law. Nothing those troops did in Iraq when they brought the President of the United States his own hat to sign violated anything, because they weren't campaigning for anybody. They weren't trying to push an agenda as an active duty or as a representative of the United States military. All they were doing was having a president sign a hat. The media is the one that created the issue. If there were no cameras there, I guarantee you those troops would have still had President Trump sign those hats for him. When Obama came and talked to the troops, they brought pictures of him, magazines, shirts, and yes, hats. Look at the Logic Nation radio show Facebook page. I shared a picture of Obama signing a hat for a troop in uniform. And guess what? The media didn't flip out. So this whole thing is contrived. And now you've got the media going around. You've got these political buffoons and these military morons who happen to have stars on their shoulders going around saying, oh yeah, these troops, you know, because they're leftists. And one of the reasons I left is because the General Officer Corps was filled with leftists. But you've got these leftist retired generals who are saying that troops violated regulations and could be in trouble. Now these troops are probably crapping their pants, having gone through dealing with the ramifications of being political and having the military try to screw you because of your politics. I know that it's a scary situation, because what happened with me was they wanted to do an Article 15 for my writings that I did. And I hadn't violated anything. I have a right to write whatever I want, as long as I don't do it as a representative of the United States. And of course, as long as I meet certain guidelines. I mean, obviously I can't, at the time, I can't call my commander a piece of trash, and I've got to remember the chain of command and stuff like that. But I can still have a political opinion. And they tried to give me an Article 15 for that political opinion, and I demanded a court-martial knowing that I didn't break any laws, rules, regulations, policies, or anything. And so instead, I got a letter of reprimand, which didn't go anywhere because they couldn't do anything. And there's no way to fight a letter of reprimand. They give it to you. There's no appeal, nothing. You just beg the Army not to put it in your official folder. So those troops that are now hearing all of this, they're hearing these retired generals who have stars on their shoulders and on their collars or on their chests, depending on what uniform they're wearing, are out there saying, oh, these troops are in trouble. I'm sure their commanders are looking into this. And you know what? They probably are. That's what should scare people. The fact that, think about this, the fact that soldiers who have rights just like everybody else, and I know some people, I fought this the entire time I was in the military as well. You know, when commanders tried to tell me, or senior enlisted people tried to tell me, you know, when you signed up to be a soldier, you forfeited your rights. Oh, hell no, I didn't. I looked at every document that I've signed, and I still have it to this day, my enlistment contract. I never forfeited a single right to become a soldier, ever. I still maintained my right to keep and bear arms. I still maintained my right to free speech. All those rights I didn't give up. Now, I agreed to certain ways in which I exercised those rights, but nothing was given up. And you better believe that I found ways to exercise my rights that allowed me to be honest while also conforming with the regulations. And that invoked the ire of many, many, many people. But the bottom line is, my message to these troops, if you're one of these troops and you find yourself being investigated because you dared to have the highest person in your chain of command sign your hat, stand strong, stand up to them. If they want to give you an Article 15 or they want to punish you, fight it, say no, demand a court-martial. And look, even if, let's just say let's go worst case scenario and you go to a court-martial, do you think the president isn't going to pardon you for that and get rid of that conviction if that's what you get? But it's not going to go that far, I can tell you, because I've got the directive right here. It's plain black and white what you can and cannot do. The fact of the matter is, Trump was not doing a political campaign. Therefore, the soldiers weren't attending a political rally as an official of the United States Army. Because if that was a political rally, let me tell you who's really in trouble. The generals and the colonels who allowed those soldiers to go to a political rally in uniform, because then they're representatives of the United States Army. So the fact that they were allowed to go to this political rally, and I'm using their terms, is proof that it was not a political rally. It was their commander-in-chief coming to speak to them about national security policies and about United States strategy, and thankfully about pulling out of Syria. Unfortunately, I wish we would have pulled out. He would have announced also that we were leaving Iraq and Afghanistan, but it's progress, right? That's my comment. I defy anyone in the comments, anybody, if you think I'm wrong, and you think that those soldiers who had their hats signed, because, you know, the media is talking about the fact that, oh, they violated, oh, these troops, they violated the law, they violated the Uniform Code of Military Justice by having these hats signed. No, they did not. And yet not a single one of them have said, you know, Army Regulation ... or Title 18 ... or DOD Directive. No, I'm telling you what the DOD Directive is. It's DOD Directive 1344.10. And guess what? This was passed. Guess when this was passed? This was signed a month after Obama came into office. 1 month after Obama came into office, this memorandum came out. Guess why? Because he was afraid that people that supported him wouldn't be able to support him and wouldn't be able to be vocal about it. However, what they don't realize is almost immediately after Obama, this is around the same time, about a month after this came out, is when I got accused of violating this because of posts I wrote about Obama lying about gun control. And I called him a liar. I didn't call him a liar. I said he's lying to you about gun control. And that got me in some hot water. But that had nothing to do with the military, and I didn't do it in my military capacity. So thankfully, about a month or two prior to that, this was passed, and it saved my butt. I was able to I mean, it saves my butt anyway. I would have fought this thing all the way up through the courts because I still have a right to free speech. So there you go. I defy anyone to explain to me how those troops, what regulations specifically they violated, what directive, what law, what anything, regulation or policy that they violated, asking the president to sign a piece of cloth. So, all right, let's see. The military does not censor anyone on the left who appears at rally. That's so true. Although, I think, I'm trying to think recently if there was a guy. I think there was a guy that came close. They ended up, he was a National Guardsman, though, it turned out. And then you've got, of course, you got the commie, the West Point commie. He ended up getting kicked out. He was a leftist, but that was pretty extreme what he did. And who wants a communist in our military anyway, especially one that's a commissioned officer leading troops and commanding troops? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine communists commanding our troops? So glad that guy got booted. All right, guys, I'm home. This has been a great trip. Maybe I need to come up with some fun name for these little road trips I take when I go places, because it's the only time I have to myself. All right, y'all take care, be safe, be free.